everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Happy New Year! We are into 2020. I gave my whole staff time off over the holidays because, I don't know about you, but working on Christmas Eve and Christmas can be such a bummer when your friends and family are all getting together and having fun. So here we are back in the saddle, laying a bunch of podcasts on you. And hey, we're into 2020. This is fantastic. I am really excited about this. And why am I excited? Obviously, the year of evolution has really launched itself off with a bang. We're looking at this now, and we've got all these crazy headlines. Our president is, bombing generals over in Iran, and now Iran's mad and kicking our troops out, and weirdness is going to ensue. And a lot's gone on, right? We hit that new year, and the year of evolution demanded that we move somehow. And sometimes we have to go backwards a little bit before we go forward. In this case of this Iran bombing and, killing of one individual general, actually, it's really interesting because, I was getting texts and emails and people are saying, I thought you said this was going to be a great year. And I thought you said this was going to be a year to do anything we want. And why is this happening? And gang, think about it. What did we talk about in those 2020 predictive podcasts? We talked about a lot of people freaking out when the timing was upon them to give up old behaviors and to step out into the light and do something new. And obviously, we've got a president right now in the United States who, Nancy Pelosi, is just holding on to her impeachment. She's just hanging on to it. She's like, I'm in no big fat hurry to give this to a Senate that at this time is going to do nothing with it. So I'm just going to hang on to it. Yep. Tuck it in my bra for a rainy day until somebody in this government can come forward without doing the arm lock rugby scrum and locking down and protecting their sides. So it's really interesting because obviously 2020's year of evolution is blowing out. And when we have an opportunity to see this, especially those of us who know what's going on with 2020's year of evolution and how people were going to get afraid. Remember, we talked about that. So here we've got this president who's panicking like crazy because he's recognizing that Nancy can hang on to that impeachment half. And if she wants to, she can wait till there's a whole new Senate in 2020. And if he's actually reelected, then she can just pass that impeachment on to that new Senate and say, what do you think? What do you think about our president? It's really, I don't mean to laugh. It's tragic. It's hideous how down the rabbit hole our country has become to get us to this point. It's no laughing matter that at this point, still rolling over the Christmas season and the Hanukkah season and many other religious holidays actually through December and rolling into 2020, it's no laughing matter that we are impeaching a president for the things that we're impeaching them for. Back when Bill Clinton was impeached, that was no laughing matter either. And we were all like, even those of us that were Bill Clinton fans were like, dude, just admit you did it. We all know you did it. You're Bill Clinton. Just admit you did it. And okay, now look, now you're getting impeached. Now, was that necessary, Bill? Yet in this case, what's going on is so much more grim because, again, we're in the year of evolution. So before everybody just, bites our nails and decides it's terrible and, oh my God, I thought this year was supposed to be great, remember, we are in the first part of the year of evolution. And so things are going to shake up just a little bit, especially with all these aspects, these big planets with Saturn and with Pluto. At one point, kind of cross swords a little bit there in Capricorn. And Pluto in Capricorn also demonstrates the shadow side of power. And then, of course, Saturn is saying, hey, you really can't make any shortcuts here if you're the president. So we've got this president who's freaking out and who is not dealing well with all this DNA opening up. I mean, Donald Trump is having DNA activations in him. We all are. And it's making him feel things like the Grinch's heart that grew 3 sizes that day, you know? I mean, he's feeling stuff he's never felt before. And there are levels of fear that he's feeling, understanding that there is no fixer for impeachment. And really, I mean, he's already in the history books as being impeached. And he knows Nancy Pelosi's going to hang on to that until she has a better shot in the Senate to pass it over, which is exactly what she's doing. And she's not happy about it. You know, I have some conservative friends that before Christmas got a hold of me and they said, well, are you happy now? Are you happy now? Your girl Nancy impeached our president and your do-nothing Democrats, blah, 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 blah. I felt like I was dealing with Charlie Brown's school teacher. It was bad. Anyway, these folks were mad. And they were mad at me as if I had impeached Donald Trump, as if I had held a gun to Donald Trump's head and made him do sketchy things that would even demand an impeachment inquiry. But anyway, I said, you know, if you guys really want to know, Nancy Pelosi is not happy about going into this impeaching the president. She is not happy about potentially costing Democrats seats for, you know, people who get angry that this stuff happens and things that they should have waited and all these things. She's not happy at all, which was why she wore black. And of course, you know, we love to think that everybody's jaded and everybody doesn't mean what they mean. But she really was sad about it. She thought it was a bad thing that they actually had to impeach a president. And that's no fun, being the person to bring the hammer down on that. So it's regrettable that we're here. However, 2020's year of evolution is going to be delivering us all kinds of curveballs like this. So when we're looking at this whole situation with Iran, if I were to pronounce it correctly, yet I'm in Montana. So if we're looking at Iran, which makes it sound like I'm, you know, escaping from a bear coming into my proximity, Iran, that's going to get pretty real, gang. And so I wanted to just pop in on this podcast today and give you a heads up because, you know, all of this is going to get really real. And we have a lot of people in the United States that believe that the president of the United States is innocent. And those people's DNA is being activated. Those people are being asked to look at all sides of the coin. And that's really scary for them because they believe in Donald Trump, gang. There are folks out there that think that this guy is the best president since a Snickers bar was created. I mean, there are folks out there who would do anything for this guy because they truly see him as the last vestige of the Americana white frontier, you know, the last John Wayne's just lawlessly swinging in the Old West, rules and guns and whatever they feel like doing. I mean, it's very important for folks to recognize that there are many people that very much feel that way. I don't personally feel that way, yet I also don't think that this is the end of the world because we have a president who calls himself a Republican. I mean, whatever. Just give us a few months and a few years or 4 more years and we'll have a Democrat president. It's just how the pendulum swings. So I don't get really tied up in the political franchises, especially considering when you can see what I can see and you can see how much our electorate is controlled and how the gas pedal for large industry is floored. Whenever we have a big Republican president, you know, big companies make money. Our stock market makes money. We flood the rich with money. And then we're like, okay, well, our social programs are kind of sucking wind. And then miraculously, we have a Democrat president and a Democrat Congress. And they come in there and they make sure that the social stuff is shorn up and we make sure that people have school lunches and teachers are paid and that we have food on the tables for people and middle America is bolstered back up. And if you think about the pendulum this is on, you can set your watch by it. We put money in the pockets of middle America. We put money in the pockets of the very wealthy and the corporations, and we just go back and forth. So we all can cumulatively in America continue to feed the consumerist beast because that's the goal of the RNC. That's the goal of the DNC. And it's also to control. And so it's, you know, I don't get all hung up on whether we have a Democrat or a Republican in the White House because that doesn't affect whether or not I volunteer for my school district. That doesn't affect whether or not I run for my school board. If we have a Democrat or Republican in the White House. That doesn't make any difference if I volunteer at a homeless shelter in my hometown. We have got to take responsibility in 2020, especially in our year of evolution, for our local communities. We've got to take responsibility for bringing the world forward that we want to see. This is a big deal. And if we want to shirk off our responsibility and only focus on national politics, and I know that sounds a little harsh. I'm not saying we can't keep an eye on national politics, and I'm not saying we can't speak out if we feel like something bad is happening. Yet, if we're expecting one president, whether they're a Democrat or a Republican, whether they're a man or a woman, whether a Christian or a Muslim, whether black or white or Latin or whether they're Asian, whether they are a cisgendered or non-binary person, if we are expecting that one person to come forward in 2020 and make our lives fabulous, oh, I hate to tell you all, we're going to have such a rotten 2020. So I want everybody listening to this, no matter what your political persuasion, to consider that everyone on planet Earth right now is in the middle of these DNA upgrades. And there are some who are handling it like a boss, and there are others who are in grand depressions. There are others who are plummeted into huge anxiety because they're making realizations and feeling things that they've never felt before. Our president, Donald Trump, is one of those people. That guy is in a full tilt, tailspin, can't sleep at night, acid reflux, way more Big Macs than he ought to be eating, binge watching weird TV shows, panic. Because his DNA is opening up. And for the first time in his life, our president is feeling stuff he's never felt. He's growing parts of his conscience that weren't there. He's recognizing that there are no more fixers, that he has alienated himself to such a degree that his mob-style New York businessman personality, his John Wayne shoot it up and ask questions later verbally personality, isn't working. And this is the first time in, 70 some odd years for this guy that none of it's working? This guy is scared, gang. And listen, I know there's a lot of you out there that don't like the President of the United States, or you think he's a jerk or a piece of crap or whatever. The fact of the matter is, whether you like the guy or not, he's in the office, okay? He's making calls to assassinate people over in Iran. So sending some love to this person would be helpful. You don't have to like him. You don't have to decide he's your best friend. However, do you like peace? Do you like clean air? Do you like clean water? Well, then let's send healing and love to the President of the United States, because his DNA is opening like crazy. And if we all sit out here and say, okay, this guy's a jackhole, he's an entitled elitist, and I hate his guts, okay, that's fine. Yet it's not really going to assist a person who it happens to, have nuclear codes, who for whatever reason, and, I can't even actually say he was elected. I mean, whatever, but he had a ton of help. And there was a lot of cheating that went on there. And I know that makes people really upset, especially those who voted for him. But I'm sorry. Look, I love John F. Kennedy, but there was a lot of cheating to make sure he got in. In Chicago and the stealing of the Republican ballots, there was a lot that happened. This isn't the first president that had a bunch of organized cheating to get him into the office. I mean, JFK was the first Catholic president we'd ever had. That was a scandal back then. Can you believe that was a thing? I mean, wow, we have so much bigger problems anymore in our lives. But anyway, we're talking about the year of evolution, gang. And if we want to evolve, we've got to stop hating people and making them the devil. Now, we can hold them accountable. We certainly do need to hold Donald Trump accountable for a bunch of stuff he did. Yet hating him through the accountability process is not going to help the guy whose DNA is opening for the first time to be able to actually see things that he did that probably aren't going to work anymore. Okay, now, I want you to try to put yourself in Donald Trump's shoes for a minute. Oh, stop laughing. I'm serious. I want you to try to think about what it would be like, because when I look into this man, this is exactly who I see. I see a guy who in his heart is actually really a lighthearted, nice guy who has learning disabilities, who really should never, ever, ever have been given the reins of power that he was given, because he's bluffed his way through the whole thing and he was never good at it in the first place. And then I see and that guy's in the very middle. Okay, that's like his marshmallow cream center. Okay, then on the outside of that, there is this person who has had to have been developed by him to cope underneath of his tyrannical father who had expectations for him that he never could fulfill. And in that crispy outer layer are a bunch of caricatures. And those caricatures seek approval like you wouldn't believe, okay? And then on the outside of that is this huge machismo shell that's built out of every weird John Wayne, just Steve McQueen archetype that he could eat up as a kid. You got to remember, he's a baby boomer, so he grew up in the time of the Westerns and the shootouts and the white cowboy hats and the black cowboy hats. So there is this crispy archetype on the very outside that can never be wrong, or it means sudden death. Okay? So if you imagine this marshmallow cream person just surrounded by these crispy, weird drone automatons that for really the way that it works with Donald Trump, those automatons are running this show. Yet there's still this little person in the middle in there going, oh my God, this is going to suck. This is terrible. Nobody likes me. This is why he rants and tweets, because the little person in the inside's getting their feelings hurt, but then it goes through all these creepy, weird robots that he built to cope on the outside. And now we just have a runaway sociopathic automaton on our hands. And here we are. Okay. So I want you to think about being that person. And I also want you to think about being someone. How would you feel? How would you live your life? We're going to have a blatant honesty moment. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Now we're going to get real. Okay, how would you live your life? And I really want you to be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell anybody. If you never, ever actually had to pay a bill. If you could hire people to do things and then never, ever pay them because you could just tie them up in lawsuits forever. If when you were drunk as a skunk, your limo driver or you got pulled over and you never had a speeding ticket. How would you live your life if you never paid one dime in taxes? How would you live your life if you never had any accountability for anything? Now, I know that's hard. That's hard because we all want to say, well, I would never do that. Wouldn't you? If when you were 9 and 10 and 11 and 12 years old, you never were accountable for one thing because your father covered your butt because he was too afraid of looking like a tool. So he covered your butt. So he looked amazing. So you never had one consequence except for your father to yell at you, but then he'd gift you with something else as narcissists do to get you back in his good graces. How would you handle that? How would you handle your life? If you were allowed to sleep with anybody that you wanted and no one divorced you, and the spouse that you had would just hang on because you were so wealthy and tell you were amazing anyway. I mean, think about this. If you were someone who had no idea what accountability was and everybody fixed everything for you, I mean, we all might be a little twisted sideways. That is Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel sorry for the guy. I am telling you this because it's true. And if we're going to hate on somebody, if we're going to be a country that hates on people, you can't just hate on part of them. You got to hate the whole thing. Because if you're going to hate something, which I don't recommend any of us do, but if you're going to hate something, that means that you've got to completely derail your sense of compassion and love. And if you're going to do that, then that means that entire person becomes an ideology to you. It's boiled down to the automaton robot that's running the show, and you hate on him. Now, in the year of evolution, Hating on somebody simply for a principle is actually going to backfire on all of us, because none of us are a principle. None of us are an ideal. None of us are a theory. We are complex beings that have complex problems. And until we can actually look at why those complex problems are there, we don't evolve. We stay in the pits of tribalism. And 2020 is about evolving past tribalism. So imagine being this person, Donald Trump, and you're in the presidency, and you don't think the presidency is going to be any different. Everybody keeps telling you it is. Everybody says, hey there, Don, you don't want to be the president. You can't get away with crap in the presidency. And he says, are you kidding me? Look at what Nixon got away with. Look at before he resigned. And I'm looking at Donald Trump, literally thinking that Nixon, these are Donald Trump's words, not mine, out of his head, okay? And out of conversations, that Nixon was a dumbass to resign and not to dig in and write it through. I mean, this was his opinion of going into this office. So here we have this individual realizing that they are actually unequivocally going to be impeached because the Marshmallow Cream Center person is all of a sudden activating itself, and the Marshmallow Cream person is all of a sudden coming forward going, oh my God, I have psycho robots running the show for me, and those robots are me, and I need to do something about that because now I'm going to go to prison. This sucks, and nobody's going to bail me out. So there's this bubbling marshmallow cream on the inside of Donald Trump. While he is panicking, not knowing what to do, he's got advisors. Barr is one of them. God, that guy. Can I just make an aside? What is with the physical similarities between Barr and Steve Bannon? I mean, that is just so bizarre. William Barr and Steve Bannon could be brothers. I don't know. It's kind of an odd thing. But anyway, I mean, when you look at how this person, how Donald Trump has been handled and coddled and all these things, and now you're going to get impeached, right? And so he's got these people who are recommending to him that he take bold action. And there's this whole thing about you can't impeach a sitting president when we're at war and blah, blah, blah. So what we're seeing right now is literally a president who is acting out because he's panicking. He's trying to do some decisive action. He's trying to rally his base. He's trying to get, folks going. And granted, that general that was killed over in Iran, there were a lot of negative things that guy was doing. Americans were killed. He was planning more strike actions that were terrorist-esque. He was not a nice person, gang. Yet we can't target a leader and kill them without declaring war on somebody. And of course, our president is saying, well, I wasn't declaring war on anybody. I was just taking out the guy who was making the calls. But really, even though that was the general, he was so much more of a figurehead. There were all these cell groups doing what he wanted them to, obviously. Yet, even for the president to be saying crazy stuff like, okay, we're targeting culturally historical places, and if Iran even blinks, we're going to take out more of your people. And I'm thinking, okay, dude, you cannot run the office of the president like a mobster. I know that's your thing, but you can't do that. So you've got this marshmallow cream person whose DNA is opening in the middle of this automaton layered robot that's short-circuiting and freaking out that they're going to have some accountability coming their way. And so now we've got a big pickle on our hands with Iran. And I have to tell you, gang, this is not going to go very well. This isn't exactly going to be one of the, let's just brush it under the carpet things that we hope doesn't blow out. We've got our own allies right now. Britain is, the UK is, you've got to love the Brits. They're like, it's most unfortunate that we weren't made known of these plans before they happened. We really do, as allies, prefer to stay in the know rather than reading about what our allies are doing in the newspapers. Here the UK is trying to be polite about WTF, Trump, what are you doing? And we've got, Germany, Angela Merkel's over there saying, okay, probably wasn't the best idea. This is not in the best interest of anyone to stir the hornet's nest over there. So though Iran may not have the same type of military that we do, they have all kinds of other things like they're really cyber savvy. And so being able to do things like screw up banks or shut down electrical grids. And of course, we're waiting for them to do that. So our military is all prepared and whatever. Yet the point is not the blow by blow of what's going to happen with the United States and Iran. The point is that in the year of evolution, we're not going to be able to get through this until there are honest reactions and accountability from those who actually stepped out of line. In this case, it was the president, not to say necessarily that we shouldn't have taken some action with the Iranian general who was doing some pretty terrible things and killing Americans and blah, blah, blah. Yet you can't order a hit on somebody without it being an act of war. And so right now we've got the UN up in arms, the whole world's up in arms, and, our president is just doubling down and doubling down and doubling down, and he's going to keep doubling down, gang. So in the year of evolution, you can't fake it till you make it. Remember that whole thing? And our president right now, as the marshmallow cream person on the inside whose DNA is opening up, and he doesn't know what to do because he's actually really scared for one of the first times in his whole life, not just scared of his dad or scared of looking bad, but a particular out of control scared feeling that he's never actually had till he hit his 70s. Okay? That's where all this is coming from. And then he's got really bad advisors and he just does what he wants anyway. So, when you're looking at this is a person who is a malfunctioning, short-circuiting robot who that DNA is opening up, and really our president has no idea how to handle that. Not a clue. So that's what's going on. And that's one of the reasons that this is happening. Plus, when I look into it, you can't impeach a sitting president when we're in a war. Okay, great. So, well, Iran is shooting nuclear missiles at us, then Trump boards his plane and leaves the country. I'm still waiting for him to be a flight risk because this guy is so scared. He is so freaked out. He is now recognizing that nobody's going to bail him out of anything. People are bailing on him. And he's realizing that it's kind of gotten raw and real, and it's just down to him and his family. So now we have this going on. And of course, the fans of the president are saying that he is acting as a good American and he's protecting us and all of these things. Yet, I cannot hit this hard enough in this podcast. If you were a fan of the president, then you're probably rooting for him and sending him love anyway. If you are not a fan of the president of the United States, hating on the guy through the ethers is not going to help in our year of evolution. Send the guy some compassion. Send the guy some support. Send the guy some love. That doesn't mean you have to agree with who he is or what he's done or his administration has done, gang. I mean, man, and while you're at it, send some love to old Mitch McConnell because that guy has turned, I don't know what mud Mitch McConnell buried himself in to claw himself out as an orc. But that guy didn't start out this way. Talk about the frog that just ended up turning into this weird thing that snuffed too much spice, like at the very end of Dune. Mitch McConnell was somebody who truly believed in just economically sensible government. And he was a little conservative religiously, but that wasn't really his thing a million years ago when he got into office. And he literally has just become this weird shell of I don't even know what. It's sad. You look at him as a younger man, and now he just looks like a gray, angry Galapagos turtle. It's sad. So send him some healing and some love. I love me my Nancy Pelosi, yet Nancy's not looking so good in there either. She's looking a little scary. And so send her some love and some compassion. There's got to be something that happens energetically in a position of such power that begins to drain on people and begins to feed them in ways that they're not expecting. Because even, Barack Obama, God bless Obama, man, that guy went super gray in the time that he was in office. And that's really not all that typical, especially for African-American folks to go gray that fast. That's not really a thing if you happen to be that ethnicity. So, it's kind of hardcore whatever those powerful offices do to people. So for us to evolve in 2020, let us give love and compassion and send wisdom, accountability, and strength and courage for our leaders to do the right thing, because that's literally what it's going to take. We've got leaders all over this world. Kim Jong-un. We've got the leaders now in Iran. We've got, oh, good Lord, we've got Trump's boyfriend over there in Russia. We've got all these people who have built these automaton robots around themselves because who they are on the inside, they don't feel is enough. So to send healing to these folks and whoever it is in the world that you think is an evil devil demon person, honestly, whether it's Elizabeth Warren and Nancy Pelosi, or you think it's Trump and Putin and Kim Jong-un or whoever it is, send that love out. Because it's huge. It's just huge. And it's going to be what it's going to take to heal the world. We're going to have some serious twists and turns with this Iranian issue. And we are at a point in the world where people are just freaking out. And that's part of 2020's year of evolution. People are wigging out about look at the fires in Australia right now. Oh my gosh, it's not atypical, obviously, for Australia to have a bush fire season. It's kind of like California. California has a fire season. It's a thing. Yet when you have those fire seasons that get so intense as what was going down, especially with the drought that's been in Australia. Poor Oz is burning up down there. I have clients in Australia, beautiful, wonderful clients and friends down there that are talking about not being able to breathe. And they're talking about 130 degree weather, 49 degrees Celsius weather that's popping up all over the place. They're even experiencing these, I think they're called pyroclastic clouds. It's a cloud formation that happens when the ground is so hot with fire that it sucks the heat up into the cloud and creates an extreme lightning storm. I mean, we're talking some weird post-apocalyptic stuff going on all over the world. And of course, the thing that's so unusual now about Australia's fires is that those fires have been raging for months. I mean, can you imagine those awful fires in California and Montana and Idaho? Can you imagine if they'd been burning for months? That hideous fire that happened last year in 2019 in California that almost ate the Getty, over in Los Angeles. That horrible fire ate 2 million acres. And right now, Australia's up to, I believe it's 13 million acres they've lost. 13 million. And their entire East Coast is just crazy on fire. So, and there's no rain in sight. There might be a little rain coming here or there. There was a World Day of Prayer for Australia to pray for rain. And there was some rain that kind of popped up and it hit Kangaroo Island. And it hit a few places. And so prayer works. That's a good thing. That was a good thing. Yet if we look at everything that's going on, there's a lot of pressure in the world right now. And there's a lot of panic. And our southern hemisphere, traditionally, energetically, has been an area where really the globe can kind of take a breath because most of our population base is in the northern hemisphere. So the fact that poor Oz has been on fire the way that it has, and all of those people have been in duress, our balance point on the bottom part of our earth, our energetic chi point that sort of breathes and allows all the hysteria in the northern hemisphere to kind of come down there and chill out. And, it just gets met with the bush. And not that Australia doesn't have its problems, it certainly does. Yet their population base is far more sparse, obviously, than the northern hemisphere. So what we're seeing is that with that much panic in the southern hemisphere and this much panic in the northern hemisphere, pretty much the entire world right now is needing to evolve in the way that it handles duress. Because we're not really taking our turns like we used to. The poo is just hitting the fan all at one time here. So that requires evolution in how we handle one another. Now, I was really happy to see an International Day of Prayer for the Rain in Australia. Because as we all know, as we put out those intentions in the quantum field vibrates and brings to it that which is requested. Now, I mean, obviously this is a radio show. It's a podcast, okay? And when I have the opportunity to make a little bit of light of something, I tend to, because if we were just to sit in the pit of, oh my gosh, how heavy this is all going to get before the end of the year is out, we're going to lose the opportunities for us to evolve ourselves coming forward. So, as you feel your own gifts and talents and sensitivities opening up in the beginning of 2020 and onward, you might feel like you're a little owly. You might feel like pushing people out of your life. You might feel like you don't want to talk to people, or you want to board your Air Force One and run away to Moscow. I mean, you might be feeling like you just want to run away and leave your whole life. And when we have that, I guess, opportunity to be accountable and to be brave and to step up for something that we did wrong or to run away, it's going to be very important to be accountable in 2020. And it might get a little sticky and hairy, and you might get just a little bit embarrassed. Yet the spiritual physics dictate that you will be granted so much more gifting at that point, than you would if you tried to buck it and act like nothing's happening and try to start a war with Iran. I mean, what we're seeing here, I got to give Donald Trump a lot of credit in certain ways. And the credit I have to give him is he is unabashedly going through some massive karmic lessons on a global stage. I mean, I can't even imagine, gang, what it would be like to be going through learning my worst, most humiliating, most embarrassing lessons in front of the whole world. Honestly. And I have people that text me and write to me all the time, and they say, I can't believe that you have anything in you that can extend Donald Trump any compassion at all. I mean, I just can't believe it. You must be a secret Republican or a secret conservative, or you must be where I've been accused of working for Russia. I'm not crapping you. I honestly, I had somebody write to me one time when I was talking about extending some compassion, to our government officials. And this person accused me of being a Russian plant because I was trying to foster love. And I later figured out that the person that accused me of that actually was a Russian troll, which was pretty smart. If you think about it, I was like, wow. Way to go, man. That's some twisted around, man, that's going to be a TV show someday. But anyway, when we think about how we're going to go forward in 2020, it's going to be really important not to hit the panic button. And I got to be honest, I mean, I've been told by these angels, we're not going to give you a blow-by-blow of what's going to happen with the United States and Iran. It's going to kind of suck. It's going to get weird. It's going to get worse before it gets better, okay? We're going to have our allies kind of backing off of us. The UN's going to come out and say, hey, guess what? Hey, United States, you can't just randomly kill people. We're going to randomly target and kill more people in Iran, which is going to be terrible because they're going to do some crummy stuff and we're going to retaliate and off we go. So the rotten part about our particular president having a marshmallow cream meltdown as his DNA is opening up and his conscience is finally coming online is that Iran's buddies are China and Russia. So that starts to get weird, right? Because now there's, the only people who benefit in a war, of course, are the war companies, that the weapons makers, which, by the way, if you check the stock market right now, all those weapon makers, man, their stock is soaring right now. So I swear to God, it's a plan. Okay, we're going to get in a Republican president. They're going to start a war. We're going to get all the war people money and all the big corporations money. Then we're going to vote them out. Then we're going to get all that money back and we're going to put it back to America. We're going to subsidize our roads. We're going to get people back to work. We're going to actually give people. We're gonna fix loaning issues and get people into their homes and focus on America for 8 years. Then we're gonna go back and put all the money in those people's pockets. Then we're gonna shift and put the money in these people's pockets. If you look at it, like I get tongue-tied trying to describe it, because if you look at it through the ethers, that's exactly what's going on. So we must evolve also in 2020 how to evaluate and how to look at our political system and who we think we are in that and why it's happening and what's happening. It's not just one person. It's not just one party. These are people moving money all over the world that invest heavily in the leaders in the United States. I'm not even kidding. Here, okay. Not a lot of people are Hillary Clinton fans. I happen to like Hillary. I like her because I can see inside of her. And she is just, I'm not saying she's a perfect person. She is not. Yet she is so weirdly honor bright in certain ways and non-honor bright in other ways that the ways that she is honor bright make her super awkward. And Hillary, at the time where she was going for the Democratic nomination, and so was Obama, Hillary's been carrying dirt on big corporations, on people who've been in Congress since the early 90s. And a lot of those people in Congress are still there. Okay? And so here's Hillary Clinton, who even back in 2008 knew garbage about people that those men, and they were men, were terrified of her getting in. And obviously, I think Obama was a great president. I was happy to vote for him. I was bummed she didn't make it through the primaries in 2008, yet I was super happy we had our first African-American president. I thought that was really important. And he was a great president, so I really liked him. Yet, even back then, the DNC was shoving Hillary out because they also knew that she had dirt on some longtime Democrats. And she was going to get in there as a Scorpio who has a bunch of Pisces in her chart. She was going to get in there and just tip over those apple carts and say, to hell with all y'all. I finally have my shot to do something that's right for this country, for my granddaughters, for my daughter. And this is going to be the only shot I have. And I'm going to take it. And y'all are going down. And I knew that in 2008, and I knew that in 2016 when she resaddled. And I was just so super fascinated by the fact that the same people that were terrified of her getting in were twice as terrified of her getting in 2016. So Hillary struggles underneath of not only being one of the most unpopular presidential candidates that we've ever had, or the most loved. It just depends on what side of the fence you sit on there. Yet she also struggles with being so honor bright because she was going to come and dump everybody on their butt, gut the system out, and she was going to be the one who was actually going to seriously clean out the swamp because she had the dirt on everybody, which is why I was really rooting for her to be president in 2016. And she was going to get in there and rattle out all kinds of stuff with green energies. And listen, I'm not trying to sell you on Hillary Clinton. I know a lot of people don't like her. I get a chance to see people on the inside and what they're doing on the inside. And so I was pretty excited about what she was actually going to do, except everybody else who pretty much knew what she was going to do pretty much made sure that she couldn't do it. And that's what here she sits, right? Here she sits. And I just see old Hills sitting there drinking a scotch and chasing it with a beer, putting a dash of hot sauce in her whiskey and just saying, I told you, mother effers. I told you. Whatever. Suffer. I'm a Scorpio. Now you deserve what you get. I'm going to drink my beer. Okay. So, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? Yet as we go forward in this particular time frame, it's going to be required of all of us that we honestly get a chance to see people for the wholeness of who they are. And that's really going to challenge us to be brave. Because, there's a lot of people, I tend to vote Democratic, and there's a lot of people in the Democratic Party that don't even want to hear Hillary Clinton's name. I've had people just freak out on me and say, I can't believe you like her. She's horrible. She's done all these terrible things, and she's this terrible person. And I just sit there thinking, you show me one person, you show me one baby boomer, including Bernie Sanders, that is squeaky clean in government, and I will show you someone who is not in government in the United States. We are now growing politicians differently because we are growing civil servants who are choosing to go into politics and not be politicians. But in the era of the politician, they were pretty rotten. And the one thing I loved about Hillary, and I was so looking forward to, was this weird, nerdy, honor-bright hammer that she was just going to bring down. And yeah, she's a moderate Democrat. She's not way out there on the fringy left. I was waiting for that hammer because I could see all the houses she was going to be cleaning. And because she was going to stay so in the middle and because she was going to be so dedicated to her agenda, she was going to seem super fringy. But it doesn't matter because, they knew she was going to do that too, which is why they made sure she didn't get in. So what I think is so fascinating here is as we go forward, the evolution of self. Being able to say, I have people in my family who are huge Donald Trump supporters and believe in him at their core. And it's because those folks in my family, they see through a lens of idealism with Donald Trump, and they see the hero and the John Wayne figure, and that's what they see. And they also are a more conservative mindset, and that's who they choose, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean I'm going to quit loving my family member because I can see the heart of my family member. So it's time we start looking at people's hearts. Now, I'm not saying that we need to excuse everybody and all their crap-ass behavior and their crap-ass destructive chaos that they're making just because we're choosing to evolve enough to be brave enough to admit that we don't see things in a black or white tribalist way, because tribalism is out. We're in 2020. Tribalism is out. We can hold someone accountable without burning them at the stake. We can hold someone accountable without deciding that everyone who followed them also needs to be burned at the stake. That's ridiculous. I mean, how much do we have to loathe our inner Frankenstein monster to create a Frankenstein monster of destruction on someone else and then patchwork together all of our inner hatred on someone else and decide that that person is the problem? I mean, really? Grow up, world. We got to grow up. Well, we don't have to, but we're not going to fare very, very well through the year of evolution if we don't grow up a little. And when I say grow up, I don't mean to be, I don't mean it like 1980s Joan Rivers, grow up. I don't mean it like that. I mean it like when we grow up, when we mature, we are then able to handle and interpret complex emotional, sociological, and global issues. And what is required right now is we don't have to go be everybody's best friend. Again, that's polarization. That's tribalism. It's just if we want this world, if we want to get through this whole Iran thing, which is going to get really icky in the next 4 months. So just know that, okay? And be prepared to send love to the leaders and the people that are making these decisions. Because that's all we can do. Now, if you want to go picket, if you want to get out there and protest, that's fine. Protest. Let your voice be heard. Yet let it be heard from a place of healing activism. Let it be heard from a place of compassionate wisdom, not pitchforks and torches. Because the pitchforks and torches just called out a hit on an Iranian general. That's what that energy looks like. Are you following me here? We can't be doing that. Come on, world. I mean, there's going to be people who do it, and I'll tell you something. We've got these really hardcore, tribalistic leaders. Brexit, my God, look at the UK has this hardcore, tribalistic leader. And we've got one right now who's in the United States whose DNA is waking up, and he's freaking out and acting out. We've got a tribalist leader of North Korea. We have a tribalist leader of Russia. And the list goes on. I mean, even Australia's prime minister, I'm told that that person's not the worst of the worst, yet there's a long way to go over there. New Zealand is really rising to the occasion. So, hopefully they'll be able to rub off on Australia. Yet the days of just hating people have got to be done, gang, because we won't evolve. So I know I'm beating a dead horse a little bit at this point, 48 minutes into the podcast, yet it's very important that we get this message. Now, I do a lot of chatting with world leaders in my sleep, or they'll chat with me. It is the weirdest dang thing. Before Donald Trump was appointed into the presidency, I just cannot bring myself to say he was elected. He was technically elected, but how he was elected was an appointment. And here I had seen this mass wave, will of the people, which was not rolling. I mean, it was rolling in a pretty wide margin towards Hillary Clinton. And then we get Donald Trump. And I was super surprised by that. Yet, while this entire election was happening in 2016, I had a series of 3 dreams. And in these dreams, Donald Trump kept trying to run me down to talk to me. And he kept trying to say, hey, kid, I need to talk to you. Like your weird old uncle, right? And in my dream, I was too uncomfortable to be seen with him. And like I was running away from him. I was in Vegas running away from him he was chasing me up escalators. And I'm like, I don't know this guy. I don't even know who that is. And he'd be like, hey, kid, I need to talk to you. Hey, and he's yelling after me to slow down. It was crazy. And then I had another dream. I had like ditched him in a casino. Then another night, I was on a ferry boat in the Pacific Northwest. And the ferry apparently had me and Donald Trump on it. And he would see me across the ferry deck and start yelling, kid, I need to talk to you. Hey, kid, come on, talk to me. And I would run away. And I was hiding in this little like sitting room, this tiny sitting room in this dream. And finally, he comes and he sits down next to me. And he goes, geez, kid. He goes, you are just so you're hard to run down. I need to talk to you. And right then the ferry docked. And I had a backpack and I grabbed my backpack. And I said, I threw it on and I was trying not to be rude, but I didn't want to be around him. I didn't want to talk to him. And I just got up and I said, oh, I'm really sorry. We're docked now. I'm going to get off. And I walked out. Well, then I had a third dream. And in this dream, he ran me down and finally found me leaving some business. And he stopped me dead on the sidewalk. And he literally said, look, kid, I have got to talk to you. I've been trying to talk to you and you won't talk to me. And will you just play a game with me? Just play a game of cards. Come on. And he says to me in this dream, he goes, give an old man just a game of cards. And I thought, oh God, all right, okay. I said, okay, Donald. So we're playing this card game. And he puts down, basically he deals out a deck and we each get half a deck. And here's how simple the card game is he puts down one card and then I put down one card. And we keep going until basically the last person to put a card down wins. Okay. And so he basically says, I'll go first. So he puts his card down. Well, the way the cards were divided, and I knew this in my dream, and it probably doesn't break out to 56 cards. Maybe it does. My math is terrible. But we both had an exact even deck of cards. And he goes, look, I'll go first. So he starts. Well, logic dictates that if we have the exact same amount of cards and he goes first, then I'm going to go last. Okay? And I remember thinking, are you just letting me win this game? This is so stupid. Okay. So, but then he's like small talking to me and he's talking about his family and he's talking about me and he's talking about my hair and he's talking about my life and telling me I'm smart and I've got a lot going for me. And you know how he talks? Like he's talking like Donald Trump saying, kid, I got to tell you, you got a lot going for you here. And I just don't want to see things go south for you. And he keeps talking, right? So we're playing this card game and all of a sudden, I play my last card or whatever it was, but he had one more card and he plays it down, whatever it was. Or it was either that or we had to be out of cards first. Honestly, it was one or the other. It was a while back, but whatever it was at the beginning of the game, I was set up to win. Okay. And I got to the end and all of a sudden he was out of cards and I still had like a whole bunch in my hand. I guess you had to get rid of the card not being the last card played, but I still had a whole bunch in my hand. And I was shocked. And I looked at him and I wanted to say, you cheated, except I watched him put down every single card and it looked like our decks were stacked the same way, except he finished completely first and won. And I still had a handful of cards. And I looked at him and I was shocked. And I wanted to accuse him of cheating. I wanted to say, you cheated. There's no way you could have done that because I still have half my cards and we have the same amount of cards. Yet I saw that all his cards had been used up. So my eyes were not matching what I knew that we started the game out at. Okay, so this is this big dream I had. And I looked at him and I said, how could you win? And he looked at me. I said, I don't understand how that happened. And I remember wanting to say, you cheated. But then all his cards were missing, so how could you have cheated, right? And I just said, how could you win? And he looked at me and he said, kid, and he stands up, right? Because we were squatting down playing this weird card game. And he kind of had to struggle to stand up. And I was kind of down on the ground still. And he kind of reached over and tousled my hair a little bit. And he goes, kid, he goes, you play a great game, but you didn't see how I started, he said. He goes, you didn't watch how I started. And he reached into his pocket, like when your grandpa used to give you like a crumpled $5 bill or a crumpled $2 or something, And he reaches in his pocket and he throws down like $7. It was $7. I remember that. And he throws it down like a grandpa would, right? And he says, here, he goes, you played a good game though, kid. You really did. And as he was walking away, he goes, you just didn't see how I started. And I woke up, and that was like 3 days before the election. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, does that mean Donald Trump's going to win? And I missed something entirely because I'm looking at the major energy signature that's appropriating itself, but there's a stacked deck here that I'm not looking at. And this guy in the ethers, you guys, had been trying to get a hold of me to tell me this for 2 months, and I blew him off. He was trying to show me that what I was seeing was not going to be accurate because I was looking at the surveyed energies of the United States of America, but I didn't see how it started, and I didn't see how the deck was stacked. I was just looking at the accumulation of cards and energies, which generally dictates a winning election, right? And I mean, it was fascinating. So the reason I tell that story is because the universe is trying to communicate with us. People we'd never talked to in a million years are trying to talk to us. And we won't talk to them. Maybe we don't like them. Maybe we're embarrassed by them. Maybe we think that they will compromise our identity somehow. The reason I told you that story is because that was so close to the election. And I thought to myself, oh my God, no, that was just a crazy dream. Donald Trump can't actually win. And then when he did, and the deck was stacked and it was cheating and blah, 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 blah. Here this guy's higher self had been running me down and I just didn't want to deal with him. So last night I have this weird dream and old Donald Trump freaking pops up in my dreams again. And I mean, honestly, he and I would probably be a relatively unlikely group of folks to sit down and have a barbecue and talk at a barbecue. Yet he shows up and he comes over, and I don't even remember what he was talking about. Something about, I don't know, he was very busy, but he walked over to me and he leans over and gives me a kiss on the forehead. And he says, thank you. And he just walked off. But it wasn't like a thank you, you bailed me out. It was like I can't even hardly describe this to you guys, and you're probably going to throw up in your mouth a little bit when I tell you this. But it was literally like he was saying, like it was almost like a thank you for, I don't know if he's feeling the support I'm giving him, just to do the right thing as a leader, to admit he did things wrong, to stop this stupid war with Iran that's going to break out. I mean, because I do send him a lot of compassion. I send him a lot of strength. I don't dismiss him. I don't think what he does is right. I would not vote for the man. He's not my president of choice. Yet he is who is in office. So I'm trying to send him strength and strength of character and to do the right thing. And it was just the weirdest thing, that I'm like, why did I get this kiss on my forehead from Donald Trump? Like, he's the last person you'd think would give you a kiss on your forehead and act like a happy uncle. So the reason I'm telling you guys this is because if you know me, you know I'm not voting for the guy. You know I'm not a fan. Yet when my higher self and Donald Trump's higher self are able to somehow get along in the ether sphere, then that tells you that there's a lot more going on in our year of evolution. And it tells you that we have a lot more that we're capable of than we allow ourselves. So again, I mean, he's got to know if he's meeting me up in my higher self that I didn't vote for him and I wouldn't again. And that I'm pretty horrified by a lot of the choices he and his administration has made. Yet, that doesn't change the fact that he's still the guy who's sitting in that chair. And I really wish he'd make more compassionate, informed decisions. And in order for him to do that, he's got to find a courage that is not indigenous to him. He's got to find a compassion that is not indigenous to him. So if I just keep hating on him, that's not going to help solve the problem. So I try to send him courage and I try to send him compassion so that he can draw on that to make the right decisions. And he might not. But God, the poor guy ran all over a ferry boat to run me down in the ethers. You guys should have seen him. He was all sweaty and his toupee was all weird and he had streaks of hair in his face and he was super beet red in the face and he was like bent over, grabbing his knees, huffing and puffing, running up these stairs trying to catch me. I mean, the guy was trying to get a hold of me. So when we recognize our own biases, when we recognize our own blind spots, that's when we can see everything. And it doesn't change our convictions, and it doesn't change what we believe, and it doesn't change how we vote. Yet it certainly does change the spiritual and emotional fabric of all connectivity between all people, the weather, the elements, fire in Australia, craziness in Iran and China and Russia and North Korea. Oh, that's going to get weird too. I mean, what can you do today to affect the world? Off gas, peace, accountability, compassion, and courage. Off gas, put out into the quantum field, into the atmosphere, into your prayers, into your affirmations. Put out a desire to hold someone or hold space for someone else while they struggle through all that. I mean, it takes a lot more courage to not just slog on somebody. It takes a lot more courage to hold space for somebody while they heal. Now you can hold space for them while they're in prison, but you can still hold space for them. We don't need to hate in order to do the right thing. Because there's nothing about hatred that will be right in 2020 or any other time. So go forward in this week. Elevate yourself. Challenge yourself. Challenge yourself. Allow those superhero powers to come forward. And challenge yourself to hold space for someone else to grow. And give them a rah, rah, rah in the atmosphere instead of a screw you in the atmosphere. And you watch. Because this really is about the only shot we've got, America and world, at calming things down right now. Or we can all just go into the hate balls and let it all blow up and we'll all blow each other up and we can just start over in another 10,000 years once the earth irradiates itself. But I think that's a little severe, don't you? Yeah. All right, gang. Happy 2020 year of evolution. Challenge yourself to hold space for yourself and others. Doesn't mean you have to agree. Doesn't mean you have to like them. Just challenge yourself to go about holding that space differently. Evolve into the strength that you have so that others may also. And I will see you next week.